Trump is set to meet with Zelensky as he renews focus on the Russia-Ukraine war.
The president is also turning his attention back to Ukraine after a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday. Trump says they will soon meet in person in Hungary.
Good morning, Tony. Yeah, talks with Russia and Ukraine appeared to have stalled out over the past couple of months. But now President Trump is trying to revive them. After speaking with Russian President Vladimir Putin for 2.5 hours yesterday, he has agreed to another meeting with him.
Within 2 weeks or so. Pretty quick.
It'll be the second one-on-one this year for President Trump and Vladimir Putin. This time, they'll meet in the Hungarian capital of Budapest, hosted by strongman Viktor Orban. After the two last met in Alaska in August, Putin rejected Trump's plans for a sit-down that included Ukraine's president. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that has not changed. Ukrainian officials say a massive overnight strike on Wednesday exposes Moscow's real attitude towards peace. Russia's attack on energy and infrastructure facilities involved 320 drones and 36 missiles.
Mr. President, will President Zelensky join you in Hungary to meet President Putin?
Because it's a leader that we like. We like Viktor Orban. He likes him, I like him. It's a country that's a safe country, done a very good job. He's been a very good leader in the sense of running his country.
Is it a trilateral meeting, or is it just you and Putin?
To be determined, but I would say most likely it's going to be a double meeting. It'll be a double meeting, but we will have the President, Zelensky, in touch. There's a lot of bad blood with the two presidents.
I mean, it's a flex. And it's an expansion of like what previously would be unfathomable. Just like when Benjamin Netanyahu flies to the United States of America, even though it's not a party to the Rome Statute, so like, or it's not under the ICC jurisdiction. That's an expansion. That's a flex. That's to say, like, yeah, we are able to do war crimes, be branded a war criminal, and still get protection, political protection from the most powerful nation on the planet. And this is working in an identical fashion where after years and years of valid concerns and posturing, even though it is hypocritical for the Western world to posture against anyone doing war crimes, because they do it themselves as well. But regardless, like war crimes are still war crimes, okay? It is valid for Vladimir Putin to be branded a war criminal, 100%. This basically is another expansion of what previously was considered unfathomable. He's going on European soil. He's going on European soil as someone who is supposed to be branded a war criminal by the ICC to basically have a meeting with the President of the United States of America. I understand that in order for peace to prevail, you do need to communicate with the adversaries. I am in favor of this. I'm in favor of treaties. I'm in favor of peace. I'm in favor of longstanding ceasefires, no matter where it is, right? And I've been an advocate since day one, and have been yelled at quite a bit by pro-NATO people for this position, saying that I want Ukraine to fall into the hands of Russian control or some shit like that. But I don't even think that this is actually anything beyond Putin taking advantage of Trump once again by claiming that he will be more receptive to Trump's advances while still continuing his strategy on the ground. With less power in the hands of the United States of America around the global stage, Putin gets away with this. And in the absence of America bringing China to the table, like bringing all parties involved in this to the table to commit to longstanding peace, offering a favorable deal to all parties without completely eroding Ukrainian sovereignty, I don't believe that there is going to be a just or equitable or any solution whatsoever. But I don't think America is going to do that because they're still playing a different ball game. They're still behaving with the rules of post-World War II. Like they're still operating on the Cold War boundaries or beyond Cold War boundaries. Like they're still operating like it's the post-Cold War era of peak neoliberalism from like the 80s and 90s all the way to the early 2000s to 2010s, where there's only one game in town, and that's the United States of America. There's only one player in town, And when they say jump, everybody says how high. And it's gone. It's over. This is not how it works anymore. If you are a foreign adversary that is a nuclear superpower and you want to engage in irredentist behavior against your neighboring nations, as Russia has done, you get to do it. There is a powerful economic counterbalance to America's global prominence here that can back Russia, and that is China. So unless you actually try to reach a reasonable deal with China and bring them to the table, it's just not going to work. And Russia will continue to say, oh yeah, we want peace for sure. We want to stop the war for sure, without actually doing that. And if you have shown over the past couple of years that you are not capable of striking an economic blow that is significant enough to Russia to force them to stand down, and you can't present a strong enough defensive force against Russian military incursion into Ukraine, as the past couple of years have demonstrated, then you have to look for a different alternative. America is not recognizing that we are no longer living in a world where it is the hegemonic superpower. We are living in a multipolar world, and the American government doesn't recognize that and postures as though they are the singular power still. They're not. The faster they recognize this, the easier things will be, but it kind of feels like America's just going to refuse to do that and continue bullying our allies, continue bullying the countries that are vassal states, demanding more tribute from them, with hopes that that kind of reinforcement of power, prominence, and influence will cause others to remember who's really in charge. But I think all that does is ultimately shorten the timeline of American empire, because eventually there are going to be actors in these countries that demand sovereignty and will say, all right, we're done. We're done with this shit. Continue to suffer. HasanAbi, you deserve it. I mean, when America suffers, the whole world suffers, as you can see, because the decisions that we make are consequential for everyone. And empires do not go away quietly. They oftentimes actually become increasingly more violent.
What if Mr. President Putin doesn't agree to peace in Hungary? What do you do then? Do you have...
Well, let's see what happens. I mean, what if? I think he will. I think that President Putin wants to end the war, or it wouldn't be talking this way. I think he wants to end the war. I spoke to him yesterday for 2.5 hours. We went through a lot of details. He wants to get it ended. I think that President Zelensky wants to get it ended. Now we have to get it done.
I have even less confidence, judging by what he has done so far, and also judging by how little power of influence he has over Vladimir Putin here, in the absence of trying to set a side deal with China. Okay, that's a big if, and he's not going to do that regardless. I have even less confidence that he is going to secure a ceasefire here than maintaining a permanent ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinians. Because remember, America could stop Israel with one phone call, but America cannot stop a foreign adversary with one phone call. It doesn't work that way. So he has even less leverage in this situation. He has no leverage whatsoever in this situation in terms of telling Putin what to do and what not to do. He has zero leverage. Okay, so you must gain leverage. How do you gain leverage? You bring other larger parties, larger backers. One other way to try to escalate the tariff regime is by going to the secondary markets that Russia utilizes, India, right? But that is far too consequential for America's relationship with India, because if Russia is using India as a secondary market to allow its oil and gas industry to enter the international marketplace as a mediator, and America wants to put an end to that, that is going to cause financial harm to India. India is obviously still self-interested, and they're going to go, yeah, we're not going to do that. They're going to say, we're not going to do that. Sorry, big dog. That's not happening. Or they're going to reconsider who they want to be in the sphere of influence of. Right now, they're fine with being in the sphere of influence of the West, while also simultaneously playing in playing the middleman role that they have, a bulwark against China. But also, they're also simultaneously too close to China in proximity to take a stronger stance against China to begin with, and especially if China seemingly is demanding less restraint, or if China is seemingly not pushing ridiculous conditions on India when America is pushing conditions on India that they consider to be unfathomable, then that's going to ruin America's influence over India as well. It's going to hurt America's influence over India in general. Because in the past, when you were the singular hegemonic superpower, everyone had to deal with you. But now there is an alternative. And when there is an alternative, every action that you take needs to walk a fine line. If you are too heavy-handed with other regional powers like India, if you are far too aggressive in your approach, and you make demands that they consider to be bad for their own sovereignty, for their own people, for their own economic outlook, then they have another person that they can go to. So far, from the perspective of at least the European vassal states, they have not moved in the direction of China. Okay, they are still very much servile to Western interests. I think, xenophobia and Orientalist frameworks play somewhat of a role in this calculation for sure. And I think they're also terrified of living under a unipolar Chinese global rulership. They've benefited greatly from Western power exchanging hands, but only going back to another Western country like the United States of America. And they are too fearful of having to deal with China, even as an even competitor. And they're especially fearful of having to be servile to Chinese foreign policy and Chinese interests. But India might have different considerations. India is too close in proximity to China. India has also shown time and time again that in spite of their back and forth with China, that they are willing to leverage a relationship with China. They're willing to leverage that to get better deals from the West. This is something that Donald Trump has to consider. I don't think they can rely on like the existing anti-China tendencies of India for as long as they have, especially if China decides to offer better deals to India, for example, or a lot less restraint than America is offering. What concessions can Trump give to India to make them more favorable to their position? I do not know. Someone in the chat asked that question. I actually don't know, but what I do know is India currently enjoys the leveraged position that it has between China and the United States of America, and it certainly enjoys cheap oil and gas coming from Russia. So demanding that they actually stop that trade and shut off Russia's entry point into the international market is probably a non-starter, and therefore I'm not so sure how Trump is going to get to do that. Maybe. I do think that as far as Russia goes, even without Chinese backing, they do have the power to influence they have the power to influence like a global oil shock if they wanted to. I mean, I don't know how much power they have at OPEC Plus. I mean, they still have a lot of power. America obviously has a lot of allies there too. Having said that, Russia still has the capacity to influence these decisions, and therefore cutting them out from the international market is going to be very difficult. Cutting them out and cutting their oil and gas from the international market is going to be impossible. But that is like one of the last tools in the tool belt that America has, because they already deployed the mother of all sanctions on Russia. Like, there are still some things that they can do to fuck with Russia's bag, but the mother of all sanctions did not work seemingly. And if anything, it might have actually played a formative role in the creation of this secondary market outside of the SWIFT-backed petrodollar system. Every single day that goes by, I feel like America's leverage power is waning on the global stage. And they are not cognizant of this, I don't think. Or at least they're behaving as though that's not a reality. Isn't that kind of good? I mean, broadly, a multipolar world, depending on how both parties that at least still control certain parts of the planet operate, could be a better future. It's just that no one seemingly wants to engage in a collaborative effort here, and everyone is simply posturing, especially America. America's getting increasingly belligerent. Yeah, a multipolar world under capitalism is not good. Just different bad is right.
Yeah, please.
President, message to India and Hungary, who is still refusing.
You said India and Hungary? That's an interesting.
And Hungary
India and Hungary. It's an interesting combination.
refuse to stop buying Russian oil.
Well, India is not going to be buying Russian oil anymore. And Hungary is sort of stuck because they have one pipeline that's been there for years and years and years, and they're inland. They don't have sea. They don't have sea. And I spoke with...
That's crazy that he has a lower standard for Hungary purchasing Russian oil as opposed to India. When he says India's not buying any more Russian oil, I don't know how much I believe him. I feel like he's just saying that at the domestic front in an effort to make it seem like he's doing things. MAGA believes this? I mean, yeah, MAGA believes that Donald Trump is not Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, okay? They're stupid. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. Like, there's got to be a certain point where you have been there's got to be a certain point when you've been the recipient of so many awards where eventually, you've been fooled so many times. Like, at a certain point, I'm going to start believing that you enjoy it. You enjoy being fooled. You're kind of a cultist. If you're looking like Admiral Zhukov with the Fell For It Again awards all over your chest, maybe you enjoy it. Sorry, not Admiral. Field Marshal Zhukov.
We're not in it for that. We're in it to get it over. We're losing thousands of people a week. Thousands of people. Russian, Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. I mean, mostly soldiers. But we're in it to see that end. And if we can end quickly, and I think we can. I mean, I had a very good talk yesterday. We're going to be talking about it. But I had a very productive talk yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. But the war in the Middle East was far more complicated. We got that one done. I think we have a good chance. I think President Zelensky wants it done, and I think President Putin wants it done. Now all they have to do is get along a little bit.
Yeah, I think Zelensky wants to get it done more than Putin. I think Putin wants to take as much territory as he can while extending the timeline over and over again with like these unique gestures of goodwill that Trump takes sincerely every single time. Not to sound like a NATO Andy, but there was an opportunity to do this when Trump became president, and I even gave him credit for at least talking to Vladimir Putin directly, something that I wished the Biden administration did on numerous occasions, because you do have to talk to the opposition here. You have to talk to the belligerent here in order to cut a treaty, in order to have permanent peace. Having said that, given the lack of leverage that America has, especially because they've exhausted almost all of the options, it's just we're kind of cooked.